How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today, should you move to Boulder, Colorado? We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and we're starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everton. Listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around Denver, Colorado, then this is a channel for you. So that subscribe button and notification icon you see on your screen, make sure you click on that as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And as much as I try to be a little creative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the Front Range's most talented realtors. And we're helping people move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, know that I'm always the person. Answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. There, winning if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly of should you move to Boulder, Colorado. Okay, we're going to start with a spoiler alert, and that is that a lot of people who are going to watch this video are going to realize that Boulder may not be the community for them. And not because Boulder itself doesn't have a lot of amazing things and amazing qualities, but as you're going to learn, there are certain challenges to living in Boulder that may have you looking at the outskirts in different communities, and we're going to talk about that. And certainly while we're going to talk about good, bad, and ugly, we can't do so without also talking about some of the neighborhoods that you might want to check out in Boulder. So stick around towards the end of this video for that. We'll cover some of the best that Boulder has to offer. While a lot of the videos I make might be on the lighter side of things, I'd like to think as far as moving to Colorado, this one is going to be real as far as the challenges of Boulder. And the first and foremost, the one that no one can avoid, and that is Boulder is an extremely expensive place to live. So when we think about the national average cost of living, the score that is used by several websites, economists, is 100. 100 is the average for anything. Groceries, housing, overall 100. Anything below that is cheaper than the national average. Obviously anything above that is more expensive. So Denver in comparison is listed at a 127 score for its affordability. 127 compared to 100 for the national average. Boulder is higher than that. On most reports, it's between 141 on Better Pockets, which I used here, and then you have other websites that'll have it as low as 135 up to about 145. Either way, the affordability of Boulder is much higher than the national average. But that's not really the gut shot. When we talk about affordability, the number one consideration will always be housing, whether you're buying a house or renting a house. And Boulder is more than 3 times above the national average. Housing affordability in Boulder sat at 333 points compared to, again, the national average of 100. To compare, Denver is at 183. Denver is considered a high-cost area to live. Boulder to the extreme. So again, as we talk through this video, understand this isn't a forget Boulder, you're not moving to Boulder. It is, let's be realistic about Boulder, and let's also talk, as we will, about some of the outskirts and other areas people move to around Boulder to still have access, quick access to the town, but not necessarily the high cost of it. And when we talk about that desirability, for those of you who hear that right off the bat, who started doing some research and you're starting to panic already, man, Boulder's pricey, you're gonna look at towns like Lafayette, Louisville, Longmont, Erie, Loveland, even Broomfield, getting closer to Denver. A lot of these communities that will give you maybe a 15 to 25 minute drive into Boulder, but you're still close, and in some cases, as we'll talk about, you're still in their school district. Now, why is Boulder obviously so desirable? We look at a lot of communities, and there's a lot of reasons to like different towns you're in. Well, as you go down Route 36, as you pull into Boulder, you see the beauty of Boulder. That's something that I always talk about first and foremost when I'm making videos on the town, because there are few towns that give you that visual that Boulder does. Boulder has an extensive history to it. It's always been a staple of Colorado. And so because of that, you've got this high desirability because it's gorgeous. You have a lot of outdoor activities. Boulder people tend to be very, very outdoorsy in general. whether it's hiking trails, biking, kayaking, rock climbing. That is the energy of Boulder. You'll feel it as soon as you get there. If you visited already, you know it. And the people who live there tend to have that as a common trait, a common theme amongst them. And Boulder lives off of that. I mean, tucked right against the Flatirons, you have these, amazing hiking trails within a few miles of where you're living. You've got paths throughout the town. You've got bike trails that extend for hundreds of miles. You got a bike trail that rolls down into Broomfield that's very popular. So the idea of getting outdoors and really embracing Colorado weather is huge in Boulder. And when we think about Boulder, we've got to look at Pearl Street. Pearl Street is genuinely the center, the heart of Boulder. You get down to Pearl Street, one of the most walkable stretches of roads in all of Colorado, and certainly any of the Denver metro or Front Range towns. Pearl Street is filled with local boutiques, restaurants, shops, coffee shops, street artists, whether they're drawing, whether they're juggling things, the guy that stands on 20 chairs and somehow manages to not fall and break his neck. All of that along Pearl Street, plenty to see, beautiful gardens, and really just that center scope of what Boulder is. Whether, it might be a little slower on a cold day, but if the weather is even somewhat decent, and that's basically above freezing, and the sun's out even a little bit, Pearl Street is going to be jam-packed full of people in the best way possible. Another key factor when we talk about Boulder is how highly educated that community is, and overall, roughly 75% of the community has either a bachelor's or a master's degree. I believe the national average is around 29%. And that's part of the reason that obviously the University of Colorado, I shouldn't say obvious, some of you don't know, but the University of Colorado finds its home in Boulder. Again, the town is gorgeous, so is the campus. It's a very, very beautiful campus, great to go and see. And a lot of students go there and end up remaining in Boulder and the outskirts. Because of that high education level, you'll see that in a lot of the businesses that are there. Boulder is especially big for tech companies. Google has a headquarter there. Ball is there as well. So several large tech companies, that's one of the biggest, or tech is probably the biggest employer in Boulder. And a lot of companies who are looking for that higher educated population will be there trying to soak up that population. And again, as I mentioned, it's home to the University of Colorado. Boulder Valley School District is a highly rated, among the best, if not sometimes rated #1 in the state as far as school districts. And Boulder Valley, again, mentioning that not just people living in Boulder, but people in nearby communities like Louisville, like Lafayette, will be covered by that school district. So educational opportunities in Boulder are very important. Now, some of the, again, this could be a positive for you, a negative, and I'll get plenty of comments for it, but Boulder is known for its very liberal views. It has leaned liberal for decades and decades. And again, the people that love that, love that. People who hate that probably don't live in Boulder. You should be aware of that, especially if you are moving here from out of state and you're not familiar with that history. Now, two factors that are interesting in the fact that they don't necessarily mesh, or at least not yet. Boulder is a very open community. They're open to different cultures. They are open to different lifestyles, if you will. And I believe, at least from what I've always heard and what I've experienced, that's always been the case with Boulder. It has always been a very open-minded community in that way. At the same time, Boulder is not the most diverse community. Most of its population is Caucasian. There are certainly, really close-knit groups in a variety of cultures. I've mentioned in previous videos, my wife is Venezuelan. We get up there a lot for the different Latino events and culture there for that. And while it may seem bigger when you're in the middle of it, it's a small piece of their community. So while Boulder is open to these different cultures and these different communities, the diversity aspect hasn't necessarily caught up to that, so that there is some duality there. As far as economy, Boulder's economy is kind of in a bubble, if you will, or kind of a tight knit. Mainly tech. You're going to see some education. You're going to see science. A lot of people will transit out of Boulder to their jobs nearby. Maybe they go down to Broomfield, Denver, get over to Longmont. But those are the biggest economic factors there. So There are some great high-paying jobs in Boulder, but that economy is a bit too small to really support the entire community as a whole. And if we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Boulder, we also have to be honest about some of the changes to crime and its homeless population. And this has been seen in Denver as well. Crime has increased in our community here in Denver, and too so in Boulder. You've seen an increase in the homeless population. They'll call them transients. That's, I think, the politically correct term, but your homeless population can be challenging, and especially in the warmer months, just more homeless people tended to show up in Boulder. Again, I would imagine they enjoy how nice Boulder is as well. And then this is a fact. Crime has been on the increase in Boulder. And I get that feedback a lot, again, from friends, clients, people that I have conversations with in Boulder. Now, I'll say the people who live in Boulder tend to tell me, and they've said this for decades, that Boulder is a very safe community. Has been for a long time, will continue to be. So, as we see these crime increases, I think that's affecting a lot of different cities. It's affected Denver as well. Some you're going to want to keep an eye on, but if I was talking to people about feeling safe in a community, Boulder is going to rise to the top. And that's not based on necessarily stats. That is based on the feedback I get from people who live in that community. They primarily, with some exceptions, feel very safe in Boulder. So the first neighborhood I would mention is Mapleton Hill, located northwest of downtown Boulder. A lot of beautiful historic homes over there, tree-lined streets, really close to Pearl Street and Mount Sanitas. So Mapleton Hill is going to be a very popular place. Heading north Boulder is North Boulder, or Nobo. So North Boulder, and a neighborhood in there that I really enjoy is Wonderland Hills, and Wonderland Lake is up that way. Getting closer to the heart of Boulder, you have University Hill, obviously near the University of Colorado, right there adjacent to the university itself. A lot of great energy there, and you have a lot of restaurants and shops in those neighborhoods. So you're right in the thick of things. Obviously, being that close to the university, you should probably be able to deal with college kids. They could be a little fun. Next up, and even if you don't live there, you're probably going to hike nearby, but Chautauqua, that neighborhood, as historic as it gets, some of the nicest homes you're going to find in Boulder. And then Chautauqua has some great hiking trails right there, and you'll see that community, especially on nicer days, there are people everywhere. Again, in a positive way. I don't mean overcrowded, but just a lot of people going up on those hiking trails. We had North Boulder. Certainly want to check out South Boulder or Sobo. Some communities down there we'll talk about, including Table Mesa. I'm gonna skip Table Mesa's lower on the list, but Table Mesa is in South Boulder, and affordability by Boulder standards tends to be a little better in South Boulder, so you want to check out those neighborhoods. A neighborhood that we're hearing more and more about is Gun Barrel. Technically, some of that is in unincorporated Boulder, but Gun Barrel, located, northeast of the heart of Boulder. Gun Barrel, definitely a place that you will want to check out. And then the last that you might want to explore, and again, just giving you a few at the moment, is Whittier. Whittier is located east of downtown, still kind of in the heart of things, one of the most historical neighborhoods in all of Boulder. Some great charm to it, great neighborhood to explore. And listen, I could be here all day. There's in one of the most desirable towns in all of Colorado, there's going to be a lot of neighborhoods to check out, but there are a handful for you to start with. But overall, a lot of good, some bad, and yes, especially when it comes to paying for it, it can be a bit ugly in Boulder. But that is also why I'm going to emphasize, if you love Boulder or you like the idea of Boulder, there's a lot of great communities within a 20 to 25 to 30 minute drive of Boulder that may fit your needs just right and give you that quick access to be able to visit Boulder and kind of have the best of both worlds. And if you'd like to discuss that, that's a perfect opportunity to give me a call. The number and email on your screen. Know that I am always the person. Answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails, there when and if you need me. That was Should You Move to Boulder, Colorado? The good, the bad, the ugly. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett. Till I see you next time. Peace.